Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam Caplan is here today. It's brought to you by Broadleaf's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating and air conditioning. 609-390-3907, broadleafs.net. We are out for a happy hour Friday at Giuliano's in Egg Harbor Township. What a beautiful day. It's not too hot at all. If you're hanging out inside, you're more than welcome to join us on the outside patio where it's nice and cool out here. But we got the cool tones of Adam Caplan, who joins us, going inside the Eagles' first week of training camp. They practiced twice, Wednesday, Thursday, and they had a walkthrough today. They'll practice tomorrow, and then they're off on Sunday. Adam, what is up, my man?
Yeah, Mike, good to talk to you. It's really funny. Moshe and I were joking, like, you know, the word coming from the team was that they're going to practice more, and I was talking to someone with the team yesterday. They're expected to be maybe more physical at some point. They're in the acclimation period, so you can't be very physical. But sometime next week, they're not going to hit, but maybe a little bit more physical. But, again, you practice 2 days. Then today they have what's called a speed walkthrough. It's sort of like it's a walkthrough, but you jog. It's more like they call it a jog through. Then, you know, they practice tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow. I've already been there. And then Sunday they're off. And then another funny thing is, Mike, they've got the only public practice is at the Link on Thursday. Then they have 2 straight days off. It's kind of funny. You have to wonder, maybe Sirianni being that how they choked, losing 6 out of 7. Maybe he felt like they had to practice more, but you wouldn't know by the way the first week is gone.
Yeah, you know, Sirianni's been a big topic of conversation, obviously, all over the place this year. I'll ask you this question real quick before we get into what you've seen and are hearing so far. But, you know, the Sirianni stuff, you know, I said the perception of him is so weird. Like, I think you have to ask this question, Adam. What was his role in the first year of getting them to the playoffs? What was his role the year they went to the Super Bowl? What role did he have in helping them get to 10-1? And then what role did he have in the decline? I think that all has to be considered before you make this assertion that this guy is the weak link of this team.
It's fair, Mike. I didn't know we were going that direction, but I'll give you just off the top of my head what I know and what I recall. So in year one, when he gave up play calling after 7 weeks, when they were 2-5, and that stunned me. That, from what I was told from talking to people close to the situation, was Nick's idea. Jeffrey Lurie didn't have anything to do with it. People think, because we know Jeffrey gets involved with, occasionally over the last few decades, he's gotten involved with coaching decisions, assistants as well. No, this was a decision because the offense got off to a slow start. Hurts clearly was not ready. They had a lot to do. It was his first year, and he became, you know, with the term we've come up with, a lot of other people use this, that CEO head coach. You get your hands, you know, on other things as well. I mean, Tom Coughlin, by the way, won 2 Super Bowls as being a CEO head coach, where you're overseeing the team. You're responsible for every player and every coach. And Nick's done a good job there. You had 22. By the way, it's his offensive scheme. Those first 3 years, that he deserves credit for because it worked. But here's what I've told people who asked me about Nick early on. It was clear to me that they made a terrible tactical error in coming out and being a passing team.
Yep.
That was a mistake. You know, I'm for analytics. I believe you come out throwing, you run later when you get the lead. However, you got to call the game to where your quarterback is. If your quarterback can't handle it, don't do it. And Nick made an error, and they backed off from the high volume of passing. They became more of a running team. That's how they made the playoffs, Mike. And then what happened was Hurts had such a phenomenal offseason. I was there in 22. It was obvious any reporter went to practice had to say, this is probably going to be a breakout season. Now, we had no idea he'd be that good. Now, here's another question. I'm going to sort of an adjunct of what you brought up. How much does he have to do with Hurts' regression last season? That's something we have to ask.
Right.
And as the head coach, and it was his scheme, which got very dry. John DeFilippo, the Eagles' former quarterback coach, John breaks down tape for us at Patreon. John kind of pointed out some things that could have been better. Though he certainly has given credit to the Eagles for developing Hurts. Hurts has got to play better, and that everybody has a hand in that. And now Nick won't be very involved anymore because A, it's not his scheme, And when it's not your scheme, you become literally a guy who is just an overseer. But you asked a good question. How much of a handle will he have in his success this season? He doesn't pick the players. Howie Roseman is full personnel control. He doesn't pick the 53, but he does have a hand in that. He does have say in it. So it's a fascinating subject. And by the way, some of his holdovers, Kevin Patullo, who I saw, by the way, working with the quarterbacks yesterday, that's another question. How about if Nick's lieutenants, what are their roles going to be, namely Kevin Patullo?
Right, yeah. It's a fascinating thing to keep an eye on here. Let's go inside the first week of training camp on offense. Let's talk about Hurts. What's different?
All right, so, Mike, basically, I don't call these much it's not really observations. It's what's noticeable, and then it's based also what we've heard. I did not see him wearing a brace on his knee, which he hurt. By the way, he didn't play well before he got hurt last season. People will have revisionist history. They think it's just because of his knee. No, that didn't help. And that's why he didn't run as much. It was not as effective, wasn't as explosive. But he got off to a disappointing start against New England, very consistent before he got hurt, and he wasn't the same quarterback. But he looks healthy, and he looks good. It's funny. I remember, and I think you asked me this after their final OTAs. The offense struggled, and you asked me if this is a problem. I said, no, I'm not. They're installing a new offense. And Jalen went on record saying it, and I'm glad he said that. I'm going to look this up. He said basically it's, I think, 8 new play callers in 10 years or whatever, 8 schemes, whatever. I counted 6, but maybe I'm missing something going back to high school. But that's a lot. And I know, look, it's his job to learn it. But you can't just snap your fingers and expect a series of 13 practices in the offseason it's going to look great. I just told people, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And he looked very crisp. He's looked good, and there's good tempo, by the way. Lots of different personnel groupings. It's looked different. This is a completely different offense. It's kind of they're flip-flopping between a lot of 11 and 12 personnel. It's going to be 11 personnel offense. That's what Kellen runs. But the thing that I find fascinating, Greg Calcaterra is getting a lot of reps. Now, what we don't know is, are they just doing this because they knew C.J. Uzomah is? He's going to be what we call a wide tight end and play inside only, while the other guys are going to run routes. So we don't quite understand. It's only 2 days, so we don't know what to make of that, but something we'll keep an eye on.
All right, Adam Caplan, Barkley, and the scene at running back. Everybody, is that position going to have a different role?
Well, now, they're going to keep 3 backs. The question is, do they keep 4? I'll say this about this backfield. It's become faster. Swift is a good player. DeAndre Swift was a good story. Didn't catch the ball at all, which is ridiculous, but that's another story for another time. But Barkley's just more explosive, and you could see it. Mike, watching him cut is something. I've never seen anybody with that type of lower body run like he does. It's kind of cool up close. I saw him at maybe a half dozen practices with the Giants over the years, but seeing him up close here in Philly is pretty interesting. And then Will Shipley is quick. I mean, he ran well at the Combine. Ty Davis-Price is his zone runner. He's got explosiveness. It's hard to justify keeping 4 backs, Mike, but this is something interesting. Maybe Ty Davis-Price, a former third-round pick for the Niners, maybe push for a spot. But, again, we have only 2 days of practice, so we've got a long way to go here.
All right, Adam Caplan, let's look at the depth at wide receiver. Is that apparent that that's a problem?
It is, Mike. A lot of us were at practice yesterday, and we were like, wow, they don't have any depth. It's one thing to look at a roster, then when you see it, now I know it's only 2 days of practice, and I watched a lot of the receivers this week, and I've heard a lot about them behind the scenes. And Jacob Harris is a guy the Eagles really like. He's number 46. He's played tight end. He's played H-back. He's played receiver. He's only a receiver right now for the Eagles. He's a guy that the Rams really liked before he tore his ACL. He was sort of a story for the Rams as a rookie in 2021. Then he unfortunately tore an ACL, and he hasn't been really the same, but he's healthy now. And he's got a real chance here, Mike. He's big and he could run. Johnny Wilson is running more with the 3s, but he's a fascinating prospect. Nia Smith is totally healthy. Running routes inside, and Joseph Ngata doesn't get good separation, but he was a training camp superstar last year. And John Ross, by the way, Mike, he's pushing for a roster spot. So the good thing is, when we talk about Austin Watkins is a guy we want to see, but he hasn't got he's running with the 3s. There are a lot of jobs open here. They don't know. Eagles have no idea who their 4, 5, and 6s are if they keep 6, which probably they will. So they've got to figure that out. Those roles are completely wide open.
All right, football at 4. Let's go over to the defense here, which has a ton of stories. So you got you got the defensive front, the tackles and the edge rushers up there. That you got young guys, you got new guys.
One thing I want to talk about Jordan Davis. Last summer, we were told flat out his weight was good. Okay, great. Well, he didn't. His condition was poor. He played too high. He just didn't have a good season, Mike. I mean, he got off to a really good start and then faded. That was the disappointing part, Mike. I don't know. See, conditioning is not about being in good physical shape. It's more about stamina and everything else. As a guy who played baseball, you gotta be in not only good shape, you gotta have conditioning. It's got to be right, and that's so far so good. But we got a long way to go. And the second team unit, Mike, is interesting. Mario Jones was getting a ton of reps. He's number 97.
I like him.
That Eagles really like. And Marlon Tuipulotu, those guys are pretty much right now the second team defense at defensive tackle. I'm not considered a starter, so that I wouldn't. He's not a backup. So they just don't have any depth at D tackle. That's it. I mean, the cool thing is, Mike, you get to see these young guys. And Tuipulotu, by the way, is now in the final year of his rookie deal. And people forget 2 years ago he was a big factor off the bench during their Super Bowl run. I'm talking about in season. They got hurt, and then you never heard from him again. He didn't do anything last season. So it's a big season for Marlon. Real quick,
is covering Vic Fangio going to be fun on Tuesdays or Wednesdays whenever he speaks?
Yeah, I'm not a beat reporter, but for someone who covers 32 teams, I've not been to a camp where he's been coaching before. So, yeah, I was with the Dolphins. Mosher and I, it's comical.
Well, just yesterday, you heard what he said. I mean, Bryce Huff, can he stop the run? Well, right now, no.
I love that. So it was really funny, real quick. So we were the Dolphins 2 years ago. We were at Jeff and I were at the joint practice 2 years ago, and Vic Fangio showed up. It was just bizarre. Why is he here? And then he would wind up coaching as a defense coordinator for the Dolphins. But, yeah, he reminds me so much. I don't remember if you remember the late, great Jim Johnson.
Yeah, of course.
Probably my favorite Eagles assistant. I've been covering this team for nearly 22, 23 years, Mike. My favorite Eagles assistant coach, and that's saying a lot because there's a lot of coaches I've gotten to know over the years, but I didn't know Jim. But covering him, then I was more down. I was down at press conferences way more when Jim Johnson was there, and I love that guy. And Vic Fangio, you never know what he's going to say. He speaks his mind. I love that.
He does.
And look, he's a legend. And by the way, I got to tell you this quick story, 30 seconds. I was playing golf last week with a former Eagles receiver. Now, you got to be a little bit older to remember this guy, Scott Fitzke, who played at Penn State.
Yep.
Scott played for the Philadelphia Stars, and Vic Fangio, when Scott was playing for them, was in his late 20s, Vic was. And he was Scott said he had no idea that he'd be this great, legendary coach. He was a low-level assistant for Jim Moore and the Stars, and you look, nearly 40 years later, Mike, he's now one of the celebrated assistants in NFL history.
All right, let's quickly rapid-fire go through, because I know you got to run here.
Yeah.
The linebackers, give me a quick thought on what's standing out there.
Yeah, Mike, there's no set. Look, you could make the case Devin White will probably start. Nothing is in pen. It's all in pencil. Zach Bond's got a ton of reps. He looks like to be one of the top 3 inside backers. Burks is hurt with a knee. Dean, the Kobe's got reps with the 1 and 2s. It's a long way to go. Trotter had the calf and the calf cramp. Happened right in front of me, by the way. He went down twice. Hopefully it's just day-to-day, and he'll be fine by the weekend. And Van Summer's a guy they really like. I mean, the question is, Mike, do they keep 5 or 6? Look, they shocked us last year and kept not 6, 7 defensive tackles. You only play 2 of these inside backers in the scheme, so that it's hard to justify even 5.
I'd imagine there's a chance they keep 7 corners, though, right?
Yeah, well, that I see definitely happening, Mike. So, in a corner, Mike, Isaiah Rodgers look again, 2 days in, he looks good. This is a good story, and he could be their kickoff returner. Quinyon Mitchell, I keep telling people, stop looking at depth charts. I don't care that he's running with 3s. It doesn't mean a damn thing. Yeah. Talk to me at the end of August. We're not going to. It's simple. Again, we said this now for 3 months since the draft. If Quinyon Mitchell's starting, if he's ready, he's starting. I don't know why people think they need to bring him along slowly. Well, no, if he's ready, he starts. That's the way it works. The one disappointment, obviously, is Cooper DeJean not being ready. He's on non-football injury, and they say he should be back within 3 weeks. that knocks him out for training camp and most of the preseason, Mike. Hopefully he's back for the last preseason game, but we'll know more next week.
Last one, Bradbury at safety. Is that going to stick?
Yeah, that's weird. Now, he hasn't taken any reps that I saw at corner. Now, they say he's going to play some corner, but they don't really need him, Mike. That he just doesn't run very well anymore. We'll see. See, the thing is, Mike, they want to justify this just under $12 million that they're paying him this season, which is fully guaranteed. So they're trying to get something out of him. So we'll see. It's a long way to go. But right now, by the way, because they're so late at safety, he's one of their second-team safeties. It's him and Tristan McCullum. That's how late they are at safety right now.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4, the Inside the Birds podcast on all podcasting platforms. Check out the YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. All right, Adam, have a good weekend, man.
You too, thanks.